Good evening, and welcome to Virginia-Highland Church, where Black lives matter, where women's rights are human rights, where children are seen and heard, where no human is illegal and love is love, and where people of all genders and all identities and all ages and abilities and faith or no faith are seen and heard and belong. Welcome this evening on this Good Friday service. I'm always amazed at the courage and resilience and commitment that we show when we show up for this particular service, because it's not really good, is it? I'm sure Mary, the mother of Jesus the Nazarene and Jesus the Christ, would not call this day good. This evening, we remember the crucifixion, not as a relic of the past, but as a lens for the suffering of now. Jesus was a brown-skinned, working-class teacher from the margins who was executed by a government invested in maintaining power through fear. He was betrayed with a kiss. He was arrested without cause, condemned without truth, and mocked by crowds who chose empire over liberation. Today, we see this crucifixion story unfolding still. We see it in children and brown-skinned people hunted down in their homes and in schools and in churches by those whose very name bears the coldness of their actions. We see it in trans bodies banned from public life, in voting rights stripped and truth distorted, in wars waged for profit and protection denied to the poor and the marginalized. We see it in the rise of white nationalism that is often masked in policy and in the pulpit. The cross has never really come down. And yet, we know that the story doesn't end on Friday, that God is not on the side of the empire. God is with the crucified, with the silenced, the shamed, and the scapegoated. And even here on this heavy and most sorrowful day, we do not look away. We stay and we watch and we witness and we name the violence that we see, and we hold space for holy rage and sacred lament. Because before there is resurrection, there must be truth. And before there is Easter joy, there must be Good Friday grief. So welcome this evening to this most sacred of services, a day that our ancient siblings called not Good Friday, but Holy Friday. May it be so for us this evening. Let us begin our worship and witness together, rising to sing, O Sacred Head, Now Wounded.
Holy One, on this day of sorrow and silence, we remember Jesus, betrayed, beaten, denied, crucified, forsaken by power, by friends, by comfort. He who cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" We hear the same cry echoing still. We see Christ's suffering mirrored today in the pain of the poor and the marginalized, refugees at our borders, immigrants illegally detained and deported without due process, prisoners lost in a system built on punishment, not restoration, parents working 3 jobs and still struggling, students with challenges and without adequate resources, those whose histories are denied and identities erased. Like Jesus, they are stripped, mocked, and cast aside, not by accident, but by policies that favor the powerful, by budgets that serve billionaires, by systems designed to protect wealth, not life. Oh God, we confess we live in a nation where the cross is worn but not carried, where Jesus is named but not followed. We ask forgiveness for our complicity and for our silence. Yet even now, on this darkest of days, we remember the tomb is not the end. Your love is never buried for long. We dare to hope even on a day like this. So kindle in us the courage of Christ to speak against empire, to serve the vulnerable, to weep with the suffering, to overturn tables where injustice and lies are brazenly told and sold. May our faith not die on this hill, but rise again into action, in love made flesh, in justice rolling down like waters, in the name of the crucified one, of all the crucified ones, we pray. Amen.
Luke chapter 22, verses 1 through 6. Now the festival of unleavened bread, which is called Passover, was near. The chief priests and scribes were looking for a way to put Jesus to death, for they were afraid of the people. Then Satan entered into Judas, called Iscariot, who was one of the 12. He went away and conferred with can look for an opportunity to betray to them when no crowd is present.
The attacks on public health. I chose infectious diseases as my specialty because it's the one field in medicine that seamlessly ties together clinical care, public health, equity, advocacy, and policy. All things that I care deeply about. I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself, something that could bend the arc towards justice. Whether it's working to eliminate HIV as a global epidemic, showing up on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic as both a physician and a scientist, or educating the public about life-saving treatments and vaccines, this has always been my calling. For the past 8 years living in the United States, I've been fortunate to live that dream. I felt like a change maker, contributing in meaningful ways to the communities I serve, both here and abroad. But the last 90 days since the start of the Trump presidency have felt like watching everything I hold dear unravel in slow motion. Public health, infectious diseases, the safety nets that protect the most vulnerable among us, all under attack. The policies being proposed and implemented are more than just ideological shifts. They're sledgehammers to the infrastructure that makes our work possible. These past 12 weeks, they felt like bracing for waterboarding every time I walk into work, all while knowing my colleagues are feeling the same. And it doesn't stop with us. Our patients feel it too. Just 2 weeks ago, in my Friday HIV clinic, an undocumented patient who relies on the Ryan White program for life-saving medications asked me at the end of his visit, "Doc, with all the craziness in the news, should I be worried about losing access to my medications?" And the truth is, for the first time, I couldn't offer him any reassurance. I said, "I don't know what will happen. Nobody does. But as long as we have voices, we must fight to make sure that this doesn't happen." You see, the Ryan White program, which provides free treatment to anyone in the United States, regardless of insurance status or immigration status, is under threat also. It could be cut, or worse, eliminated. That moment, that question, in a microcosm of the broader devastation, cuts to the U.S. foreign aid have already left millions in the global south without access to food or essential medications. The toll of this will be measured in lives lost. Here at home, colleagues have lost their jobs. Lifetimes of work are on the verge of being erased. Did you know that the CDC couldn't send a team to Milwaukee to help with its ongoing lead poisoning crisis in school-aged children? The team that responds to that kind of emergency no longer exists. Or that the FDA has already reported 15 outbreaks of E. coli contamination in food chains this year. But the outbreak response team is also gone. All part of the reduction in force initiatives. All cruel decisions with cascading consequences, touching the lives of every person in this room and those who may be watching online. So what do we do? How do we find light in so much darkness? I've asked myself this question a lot lately. How do I make peace with the existential threat to my own career while still showing up for the communities and the patients I love and I serve? How do I put on my own oxygen mask when this flight feels like it's nosediving into the Atlantic? I don't have the answers, but I do know this. Being silent is not an option. Losing faith is not an option. It's not lost on me that as a non-citizen, I am a guest in this great country. And in times like these, speaking up carries real risk. But I focus on what I can do, the small things, that when multiplied by many, become powerful. I will keep communicating about the impacts of these cuts on science, on public health, and on real people's lives. I'll keep writing grants, because science must go on. I will remain an advocate for the patients and the communities that I serve. They are the reason why my work and the work of my colleagues matters. I will keep calling and writing elected officials, reminding them why they were sent to Washington in the first place. These are my small acts of defiance. They may not seem like much, but I know that I'm not alone. And together, our defiance becomes kindling for the fire that will reignite the light that we so desperately need. We need public health. We need science. We will not let our voices be silenced.
Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter with him and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to grieve and agitate. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So can you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away the second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done."
It scares me. The other night I had a dream that me and other trans kids were taken away from our families. I had to hide in a crawl space. I would not have to worry about stuff like this. I'm not kept up with what's going on. I have enough to worry about, and I'm stressed about everything. I don't know what I can do to help. This came from Peter, a trans student responding to my question, how are you dealing with what's going on? We discussed ways to stay safe and take care of oneself. Peter has no energy to think about college or anything in the future. With recent attacks by the government in which student identities are being denied, parents who love their children by calling them by their right names and affirming them are being labeled as harmful, and educators who want to support students who are different are being labeled as unpatriotic. With all of this, students are feeling unloved, unwanted, and forsaken. One student, Larmina, fled from Afghanistan and has a permanent resident or green card. She's scared and feels she has to take a picture of it and carry it with her at all times, just in case. Sophia is a Latinx student, a senior who does not want to move forward with talking about career or college or any future plans because she's afraid she'll have to share details about her life and her family. Terrence, a black male student with whom I had this conversation. I give snacks to students and candy. In exchange, I asked him to write a gratitude on the whiteboard I have outside of my office. He asked why I had students do this. And I said, trying to be very careful with my words. A lot of people are having a hard time in the world right now, and gratitude can sometimes help. His face changed clearly and quickly. He says, oh, you mean Trump and everything going on. My grandmother had me start watching the news, and she talks to me about it. He was clearly aware, scared, concerned, and didn't exactly know what he could do. There has been an onslaught of direct attacks that have put in place erasing identities, removing critical physical and mental health care, and scrubbing fundamental information to families and educators like calling your children by their chosen name and pronouns and supporting them at home and school will reduce the high levels of depression and suicide. Concerned parents often take the lead of schools and the authorities on how to support their newly queer or trans students. What should they say? What should they do? One trans female recently shared this story. A while back, Hannah had her parents give the school permission to use Hannah in all of their school communications and systems. Hannah felt more confident and seemed more at peace. Unknown to Hannah until it was done, her mother called in the past few months and demanded the school change the name back to the dead name of Sam. Why? The parents said, with so much going on in the world, and it won't be getting better anytime soon, they should just learn to deal with reality and present themselves differently. Meanwhile, Hannah is devastated, and that relationship may not see healing. Now, queer and trans students have felt lost and harassed for decades, and often their voices are not heard. In closing, here are some quotes from the not-so-distant past taken from queer and trans students throughout Georgia. This was before the direct attacks on queer and trans students, the removal of their resources and their supports, and the new fear placed upon them, their families, and their teachers. This was before society gave this new permission to forsake them. Like, honestly, I don't think I could trust the adults in my school. I feel like they have an obligation to tell your parents or your teachers or someone if you're gay. I don't feel like there's much confidentiality there. My school loves me, but I'm the straight Christian boy who does everything right and gets A's, is always happy. I can never really be myself and let them know who I really am. So on the inside, that's just horrible. A lot of students talk about how they hate them, faggots and stuff, and I don't even want to be a part of that. So I just kind of sit in the corner and I mind my own business, and I'm afraid to tell anyone anything about me, and it's really changed me a lot. You know, it's amazing how much some visible supports will make so much difference to high school students, because visually seeing that instead of wondering and getting up the guts to ask, that's two very different things. So for me, high school is lonely. It's kind of sad. Like, I don't want it to be, but it is. I feel like there are times when I try to be there without much success. to not make it lonely. Going back to Peter, the trans student who felt he had to hide, we came to the best conclusion after 25 years of counseling that simply to exist is to resist. But then he is scared. They don't want me to exist.
Luke chapter 22, verses 54 through 62. Then they seized him and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. But Peter was following at a distance. When they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. Then a female servant, seeing him in the firelight, stared at him and said, "This man also was with him." But he denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." A little later, someone else, on seeing him, said, "You also are one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." Then, about an hour later, still another kept insisting, "Surely this man also was with him, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." At that moment, while he was still speaking, the cock crowed. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the cock crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
I speak to you this evening about education being under attack. Thank you, Phil. We're not as far along in the attack as my 2 previous colleagues had spoken about, but there was an executive order on March 20th, ironically titled "Improving Education Outcomes by Empowering Parents, States, and Communities." What this executive order really intends to do is weaken and ultimately dismantle the U.S. Department of Education and eliminate programs and activities that relate to diversity, equity, and inclusion. When Pastor Laney asked me to make some remarks about this tonight, if I could have the next slide, I, in my wonky way, said, well, why do we even have a Department of Education? And we have one, and it's among the younger of our departments, and dates only to 1980, created by Congress to coordinate federal assistance to schools. Why was there this assistance? Because throughout some of us will know, the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, there was an increasing awareness of inequities in schools experienced by, particularly by racial minorities, women, people with disabilities, non-English speaking students, in gaining access to education during a time when the states were in charge of education. If we could go to the next slide. So, what are we talking about? Some of these we will probably know by name. There's something called Title I, which is a program that was the first large-scale federal investment in K-12 education. There's Title IX, that prohibits sex-based discrimination in school. There's Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which protects equal access for persons with disabilities to services from any organization that receives federal funds. There's the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which established a civil right to a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment for students with disabilities. There was the Office of Civil Rights, formed in 1979, that enforces the above rights. And I won't even go into all of the other things like data systems, federal student loan program, training grants for school personnel, and educational research. If we could go to the next slide. So what's at risk? Title I provides access to smaller class sizes, extra math instruction, preschool programs, and more for 25 million low-income children across the United States. Title IX provides safeguards related to abuse, harassment, and discrimination of women. Section 504 provides protections for 1.5 million children with conditions such as diabetes, asthma, allergies, ADHD, epilepsy, and more, allowing them to attend schools with their brothers and sisters. The IDEA provides a right to special education for 8 million children with disabilities. I had the privilege of actually working on that for a time when I was a fellow in the office of Senator Jim Jeffords in the U.S. Senate in that act last passed in 2004. And to me, in some ways, one of the most frightening is the Office of Civil Rights, which provides the enforcement mechanisms for above. What also is at risk is the data that support the accountability. What's at risk is trained school personnel to meet the needs in high-need districts and throughout our country. What's at risk is the student loan program, and what's at risk for is advancements from research. If we could go to the next slide, please. In previewing the service tonight, I am foretelling our next section, and I titled this slide, "Give Us Barabbas." The executive order seeks to close the education department and return authority and education to the states and local communities while ensuring effective and uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits on which Americans rely. This is one of those times where we have the lie blatantly said out loud. Federal funding is less than 8% of national expenditures on funding, on education K to 12. Schools are already directed by parents, communities, and the states. The problem that we face is that when education was left to the states, too many students were left behind. And if the education department is dismantled, who will the states answer to if they fail their students? Why would our country do this? And as we will hear next, why would the mob say, "Give us Barabbas"?
Matthew 27, 11 through 18, and
I
After all these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. And Nicodemus, who had first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, weighing about 100 pounds. And they took the body of Jesus, and they wrapped it with the spices and linen cloths according to their burial custom. And now there was a garden in a place where he was crucified. And in that